That wraps up our WellDatabase walkthrough with John Ferrell. We covered targeted search, mapped areas of interest with shapefiles, practical filtering on headers and production, quick QC on trends, and a clean export built for PHDwin with the export wizard. When your inputs are structured and consistent, analysis moves faster and stands up to review. Thank you to John and the WellDatabase team for the clear, repeatable workflow.
I will say I've been working with WellDatabase all year, and I know for a fact, without even asking them, that if you're interested in WellDatabase, any of their services, you want to get at their data, they would love to talk to you. Avis over there, it's kind of like my equivalent, handles the sales side. Wonderful person to work with. Would love to talk to you about getting on that. And so if you go to our website, PHDwin.com, you can get more information, or of course, go to their website, WellDatabase.com, and they can get you started. There's a Get Started Now button on there, and they can get you going. So I'm going to go ahead and bring John on in just a second, and we're going to talk a little bit about data. And here we go. And there he is. Hey, John, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you doing, John? Nice to be here, man.
Yeah, welcome to PHDwin Week. We've been talking about this all year, and you're here, huh? So
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So John, you know, we've been working all year. We've been going back and forth. We've had so many meetings to get our tools aligned to make it so this data flows in. Kind of where I want to start a little bit is just to say thank you very much for being a good partner this year. Thank you so much for working with me, working with the team to make sure the data flows in. You know, we had Bob here in the office earlier. He wanted me to make sure to tell you hi and bring it over. And we really appreciate how you've opened up to us and how you've kind of been willing to work with us to really get this product polished up. Let me ask you from your side as a data vendor, you know, what is the challenge of working with software like us? So you get to the endpoint and then the user's got to do something with the data. You know, what's y'all's challenges to dealing usually with a company like TRC or PHDwin?
I'm going to be perfectly honest. It's unfortunate to say, but in this industry, getting just someone on the phone, who cares? You know, so many of the companies out there, they've got their product and the data's got to go into it. And if I don't know, it's something about, you know, they're used to working with certain people. And if you just want to try to improve upon it, they just kind of shine you on. They're not necessarily interested in ensuring that your customers have the options and that they actually work with the vendors closely to ensure that the end user gets the best experience. Because at the end of the day, like our shared users are the ones that get the value out of the fact that you and I can sit down and work this out, that we get every possible field we can, that we get them mapped properly. And honestly, I remember sitting down with Dave on some time ago, just about his frustrations about how you can't get the right levels, the lease, the reservoir, have them broken down so that you can do the decline at the right, as was reported, because it's just so dangerous. I mean, we allocate production. Everyone has to allocate production at some level and with their analysis. But, you know, there are a number of people in this industry who probably should know, but they don't know that that is not a number that's raw, that's reported. That's a number that's calculated. And then you're making a calculation on a calculation. It's like a copy of a copy. You end up losing your clarity. And then the next thing you know, I think you touched on it with the ethics. So you have to understand the flow of data. And so it's just so important that, you know, TRC and WellDatabase, that we aligned. And I'm going to be honest, I've reached out to others. They don't even want to talk to me. You guys did the exact opposite. You challenged me. You said you can export data, but can you export it the right way that our users can get and can do the right analysis? And I loved that because it totally shifted our export. If you notice in our export, when we walked through it, that's completely customized based off of what you guys said, that how the levels need to be reported, about how it needed to be broken down. And so that engagement, that's just crazy. I mean, I don't know if it's crazier that you guys are so good or crazier that no one else seems to care, but to me, that's worth so much. You guys, and the back and forth, like you said, we've met so many times just trying to ensure that every possible thing was spot on, and the end result is fantastic. I was using it when making this video. The data maps so flawlessly. I love it, and so yeah, it's abnormal. But it's critical. And at the end of the day, you and I aren't the ones that are getting the benefit. It's our customers that are. And that's really the goal. So yeah, it's amazing. And I appreciate all the time you guys put into that. But it really is critical. And the end result is second to none. It's fantastic.
Well, we really appreciate that. You've been amazing to work with. You and your whole team has been amazing to work with as well. Earlier in the week, Nikhil did the demo using WellDatabase, going through the whole process. Right. That's our regular demo now. We're using WellDatabase. Pretty much everyone that comes in the door and wants to see PHDwin, because we know that the data is going to be lined up consistently. We know if we do run into a problem, who we can call and how we can get a hold of it and how we can move that down the road. And that means so much. You're right. A lot of times it's just who can we get on the phone? Who can we get to help us and move this along? And if it's not someone that is competent, that's a big problem. Let's talk about that a little bit. So in this industry, I work with a lot of vendors, and as you know, there's a lot of people trying to sell data out there. They package together, they scrape the websites, and they're like, oh, great, I'm a data vendor now. And we always have these almost like competency tests that we have to do whenever we're talking to someone. Like, do they really know what they're talking about? Do they really have that domain knowledge? Internally, we've kept the same programming staff. I think they've had an average of 15 years at our company, if you look across it.
That's
Head
amazing.
developer's been here almost 20 years, right? And that allows us to have that domain knowledge because they've been messing. It's not just SQL or whatever. It's oil and gas data going into SQL. Can you talk a little bit about the value of that domain knowledge in this industry and why data basically just isn't data, that this data is very specific and exclusive?
That is a fantastic question. I will be the first to admit that when we started WellDatabase, I believe my literal line I said to my co-founder Josh Holt, I said, well, let's just go get the data ourselves and we'll make it available. All the states are online. We'll grab it. I had no idea at the time just how many potholes, pitfalls, mistakes, issues that was rampant in the data. And what you see in WellDatabase today is a decade plus worth of sifting specifically in public data, finding every one of those problems. And I can't tell you, like, there's no substitution for the amount of time that it takes to find the amount of problems that are there. And so it's a peculiar thing because I understand the idea. It's just data. I'm going to get it from the Railroad Commission. I'm going to, package it, resell it. What could go wrong? And then you get into, what about pending lease production? What about the duplication of production in pending lease and in the lease level? What about when wells get shut in and all these different aspects that go into allocation? It's one of those areas that there's no substitution for time in the job. And that's something that we really pride ourselves on because data at WellDatabase really is the foundation of everything. I think we put it out the other day, like I can make the prettiest tools in the world. And if the data going into it is garbage, then they're worthless, completely worthless. As a matter of fact, they're worse than worthless or harmful. And that's where I think people have to be wary. And like you said, those competency questions, I think we even made a blog, 5 questions you should ask, because if your data provider can't explain how they link up the OCC completions with the OTC pun numbers, then there's not somebody you want to be working with. And so, yeah, to your point, we are in the same kind of boat as far as our staff. At the end of the day, we do not want people at WellDatabase, period, who don't understand our product, who aren't willing to deep dive. And Avis is a perfect example. She knows everything inside and out. And if by some small chance she doesn't, she's going to ask me until she does know. And then she's just fantastic at that. And so those competency things, it sounds from the outside like that should be a given if you're a data provider, but you're spot on that you have to ask the hard questions. You have to dive into the details because, just like the lease level production, if you're making that forecast off of allocations, what did you mess up? If you don't even know the nuances of the data that you're getting, then how can you trust that? It's just the data, no matter what anyone says, everyone says the public data is nasty. It's easily 10 times worse than anyone thinks. And so it's one of those areas that, yeah, there's no substitution to the time and energy that you put in to build that foundation. And so I appreciate that you guys went through that. And honestly, it shows in the way that we work together. Your team is fantastic. And that's one other area that I wanted to point out about working together, that you guys have been unique because you've allowed us to go the opposite direction, asking us what data points can we add into PHDwin that'd be useful. And that was such a breath of fresh air, because it was such a great back and forth about what we can do to jointly improve everyone's experience. And so, but yeah, those domain knowledge, oddly enough, some of these folks are getting a little bit older, and the domain knowledge transfer is a very big deal right now. We need to make sure that everybody's capturing this knowledge and passing it on to the next generation of workers in the industry.
So I want to talk about that. You can't talk about this because it'll get you in trouble, but I can talk about this. That you talk about the transfer of domain knowledge. That is another problem too. You can have domain knowledge. You can know what's going on maybe a certain point in time, but then this person retires, this part of the company gets sold, there's a new boss on top, and things move along. There is a certain data provider in this industry. I'm just gonna say, a lot of y'all watching this feed uses y'all's primary data provider that got basically acqui-hired by a Canadian company. And suddenly, the number one question I ask when I get a new data provider on the phone, and they want to work with PHDwin, I ask, what is the underlying ID code that ties it all together? Are you based on API? And as you know, John, the right answer is no. You do not use API. You have your own ID, because that's how you deal with the allocations. So you deal with the lack of consistency between it. In this particular company, they said, yeah, we used to have one, but we went back to API. And we asked them why, and they're like, well, we come from Canada, and up in Canada, everything has a consistent API. And it's like, well, you're not selling in Canada. We're not in Kansas anymore, and you're not in Canada anymore, right? Like, and that was this blatant loss of domain knowledge that now we have to deal with on the support desk every single day, right? And so this is the kind of thing where not only do you want competent people, you want competent people that, like y'all are, that represent who they are. That y'all have control of y'all's destiny, where y'all's code go. Y'all aren't asking a venture capitalist, oh, can we change the front end? We really need to add this button. We really need to change this thing. And that makes a big difference, because if you got to pivot quickly, if you got to account for the needs of the clientele, then you have to be willing to maybe make some changes along the way. I mean, we're constantly changing version 3. Through this process, y'all changed so much of y'all's front end and how the export worked. I mean, you'll basically re-put together how the data works to work with our system. And that's a big undertaking. And that's the kind of thing where the venture capitalists will go, wait a minute, what's the payoff for that? I'm trying to flip this in 3 years. I don't think we want to mess with that one, right? And so it really becomes our problem. And the reason why—
I'm glad you brought that up. It's so
right?
true. And what's insane about it is that we started off as WellDatabase, and we started gathering these data points, and it did not take us long to recognize that this API is not going to work as a hard and fast identifier, that we needed something a little more globally unique. We needed something that was more, that we could count on a little bit more. And honestly, I mean, I think we hit it within months of starting WellDatabase, that Louisiana was issuing multiple API numbers to the same API number to multiple permits inside of Sonorous. And then you start digging in, you figuring out exactly why and how, and you're like, okay, so that's a bad idea. How do you get so far down the road and not understand that? I do not know, but yeah, that's a domain knowledge thing that I can't wrap my head around. So I appreciate you bringing that up, though.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a huge part of what makes this work together. Allows you to update that production 3 months from now. Allows you to make sure that you have quality, consistent data from reserve season to reserve season, and you don't have to start over every time. And there's this particular tech in the industry. She was on the second year of PHDwin Week. Her name is Jess. I owe her a ton for teaching me so much about this industry and all that. And she used to audit the data providers. She gave me this spreadsheet one time that was every data provider and how far off they were in each state, what the delay was, how many mistakes she counted, all that. And she was having to do that because her company was running into these problems on the other end. And then it was their problem. Once you put that in a file, once you send that off to the data room, it's not your problem anymore. It's not my problem anymore. It's their problem. And a lot of people don't know, they're just shipping off problems every day. And, that's part of the reason why we want to work with you, because we get garbage data, we can't do anything with it. People can't do good evaluations. So y'all are really the starting point of the whole thing. And that puts a lot of pressure on you, John. You're right. I mean, to be able to live up to that, right?
It does. No, it absolutely does. And honestly, I take it, I mean, very personal, as weird as that might sound. Like when people find issues in our data, we obviously have teams working on things, but I don't know. It bothers me. It really bugs me to my core to hear that, like, oh, this well is supposed to have production and it doesn't. And I'm sitting there. I mean, when I hear something like that, I start digging into things, even though no one asked me to. I might have someone else already have that task, but like, I have to know how on earth did this happen? Because we built a system that has so many checks and so many balances. Because everything you're saying is spot on. I hate the idea that someone takes data out of well database that isn't accurate. That is something that I personally have a problem with. And so it really is yeah, I don't know, it's such a personal thing that I dive into, and making sure all of our system, our rules engine, our cleansing engine, it's all normalized, it's all programmatic. And so the biggest thing about well database is that it's consistent, it's clean, and it will always get you the consistent results that you can build upon. And that's one of the things. I was just on the call the other day with another customer or potential customer, who was complaining about how much money they're spending with another vendor. And then they have a whole staff of people cleaning the data afterwards. And that's insane. It's absolutely not acceptable.
Right.
So yeah, you are right. It's a big responsibility, but I think I'm just like the mentally disturbed person enough to take on that, because I love it. I'm just like, yes, that's it. We will have the perfect data and everyone can build off of that. And I love being in that foundational role, and I'm happy to live there. So,
and if someone finds a problem, you're willing to deal with it. You don't just put it under the rug, under the pillow, right? I mean, it's constant
no,
improvement.
I don't think I
right?
could. Yeah, I couldn't sleep at night. So it just it eats at me. I can't tell you how weird that sounds to say out loud, but no, I mean, we don't sweep that under the rug. And when we fix problems, we don't just go in and like correct a data point. We really go back and say, how did this happen to start with? All right, let's build a rule to help ensure that we've got this fixed properly. Now let's take this rule and run it over all the data in the system. So, you found one problem. If it exists in one place, it's probably somewhere else. So we run that rule on everything. And then every future data point runs in. You can't get data into well database and sidestep our rules engine. It's impossible to do. Sorry, I'm not gonna say impossible, mostly impossible to do. We don't do it though.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't happen. And so that's just one of those areas that I don't know if it's just integrity or just a data. I mean, I'm a data nerd. And so like transparency and integrity of data is a big deal to me. And so you are right. It's a responsibility for us. And I take it personally. And it's you will never report a problem with data at well database and not have a resolution around it.
Well, I'll say why, because the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
You're not beholden to someone. If you fail, you're the one. Your family is the one that pays the penalty for it. I get a call at least once a month, and someone calls and say, "Hey, before I send this check to y'all for support and maintenance for the year, does Dave still own the company? Did y'all sell out yet?" Right? Because people are nervous about that. At least the ones that are paying attention are nervous about that. Because if you're just collecting a paycheck from someone, oh, who cares if the data is great, right? Let the next guy deal with that, right? There's a big pass the buck problem in this industry, but you're responsible for this, right?
No, I do, and I completely agree with that. And I'm not going to act like it was been just a walk in the park to bootstrap a company, and I haven't considered raising capital or something like that. But in the end, the cons have always outweighed the pros, and the biggest pro being by doing what we do, by the buck stopping with me and Josh respectively. We get to guarantee a level of service and priorities that we can put around, and they don't always drive revenue. And that's important to us, that we do the right thing, that we work on the right data. And I don't care if it makes us money or not. We do the right thing first, and we figure the money will come. And so far, so good. I'm proud of what we built, and I'm going to keep being proud of it. And I have no intention on changing that for a long time, or forever, honestly. But we'll see how the future goes. But it's just kind of built into our DNA. So I love it.
And ours too. That's why we love working with you, John. So we're with the WellDatabase. We love meeting together on it. Well, we're a little bit past, but there's one last thing I want to talk to you about, which is with this concept of big data. So earlier this year, we were working with Dwayne Purvis. He's going to be on tomorrow morning, everyone, 10 o'clock. Don't miss him. He's always on PHDwin V3. And he had a big project where he had to get a whole state's worth of data to do this analysis. And this is something in old versions of PHDwin were impossible to do. You couldn't put that much data in a system. But then how do you get that much data at all? Where is there a place where you can get that much data? Yeah, all these sites have where you can, download a little piece of the data. But if you want to do that big analysis, you need a lot of data. And what he was doing was he was taking it from y'all, loading it to PHDwin. We were like the data storage locker, and then he was bringing it out, do insight to do analysis that just isn't possible until you have all the data in a region, all the data in a state. So people, they throw around these terms, big data, deep learning, AI. There's all these buzzwords that circle around the industry, but I see there being a real benefit to having a data system like our SQL Server that can take on large data, and an economic engine that can do 100,000 wells, 200,000 wells, and then a system like y'all's where y'all have this quality data that you're constantly updating, where someone can come to you and they can get a large amount of data like that. They can get it for a good price, and then they can do that kind of analysis. You want to talk a little bit about, what your thoughts are on big data and where this industry is going to go, needing more and more data to make these analyses?
Absolutely. And I take a second to Dwayne Purvis. I love Dwayne. He is so interesting to talk to. He has so much insight and talk about knowledge. I learn something new every time I talk to him. And he's a user of WellDatabase, and we did this project, and he was not going to let an ounce of anything by. He gave me so much feedback on every ounce of the raw data is one thing, but even our calculated data, he went through, how do you do this? How does this done? And I, Dwayne is so respectful and thoughtful. He was appreciative that I would engage with it. For me, I was like, I'm appreciative that you would tell me all of these things, because I love someone with his knowledge giving us the feedback. We made changes to some of our auto backend forecasting based off of Dwayne Purvis and what he told us that he thought would be more industry standard, because we were relying on some things that were more mathematically kind of aligned. But from when he brought me in, kind of, well, in these cases, we should be making these changes. We made those changes. I just trust him that much that we kind of made those kind of alterations and started documenting a little bit more for people like Dwayne, who was going to ask the hard questions on it. But to this project specifically is a really interesting one, because it is biggish data on how much data he needed for that project. And the cool part about what we were able to do is that we have these back-end export systems. And so when you hit export in WellDatabase, it goes to a service and it runs all these exporting processes and delivers the files. Cool. What we were able to do for what Dwayne needed, because he needed so much data, we took it into, we integrated the PHDwin export into all of our backend systems that are beyond the export system. So we have what we call our custom export system that delivers exports to S3 or Dropbox or whatever. A lot of large companies use it to keep a data feed rolling in. And we generated the PHDwin export through that system and delivered it to him in Dropbox. So like, Dwayne actually didn't have to do, he just had to go download the file and upload it, and it was great. But in doing that process, we integrated the PHDwin export into our API and into our custom export systems. So that means some of our larger customers now are getting PHDwin exports delivered to them in an S3 bucket every single month, and all they have to do is grab the file, upload it. What we are delineating, or we're capping like the last 12 months of production, like I put in the video, so they don't have to overwrite their entire database every time. They're getting incremental updates, and all of this is automatic. And so no one's having to waste their time wrangling data to get this database update. They are able to get huge amounts of data from WellDatabase in one fell swoop, and then the SQL on PHDwin just loads right in, no problem. And it's just like a beautiful thing, because you start taking back even 5 years, the steps necessary to take that level of data. It just took a tech or 2 or 3, sometimes weeks to just go through and get all the data, format it, put it where they need to, upload it to multiple projects, because you could only have so much at once. And to see that kind of flow through that way, that we could automate that he just gets one massive export, and then it just loads right into PHDwin, and he's off to the races doing what Dwayne does best, which is digging into that data. I mean, that's priceless as far as the amount of time, energy, and honestly money saved by doing that. I loved that project, and I'm looking forward to doing that again with Dwayne on the next one. He comes to us with the best stuff. We have the greatest conversation. So if anyone's here not planning on watching Dwayne's thing tomorrow, they need to absolutely show up. It's Dwayne Purvis is awesome.
I mean, that's why I have him on every year. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. He's taught me more engineering concepts than anyone except maybe the David Pasenda has. because he's willing to share. He doesn't sit on that knowledge. He wants everyone to be competent. He wants the industry to be more competent. He wants better data for everyone. And I think that's what we all want too, right? There's some companies that they want their little secret sauce and, oh no, we found something broken, let's not fix it. And that's not the way you operate. That's not the way we operate. We want, we have an open schema in the SQL Server. Y'all are, dealing with the public data, being very transparent, how y'all are formatting it and pushing it out. And I think that that's what clients really need. Sitting there and trying to play goalkeeper wall garden, it doesn't do anyone any good, because you always get to the edge of that wall. You always need to get into that next garden, and then you're going to have those problems. Then it's the client dealing with, as you said, with mounds of text, with man hours and all that. And that's what we want to get away from in this industry. And so I will say, I'll be honest, John, we haven't actually got questions coming in. Nikhil has been commenting, though. He said, I absolutely love John's passion and tenacity. I will completely agree with that. You got a huge fan over here. He's going to keep demoing your product. We love everyone at WellDatabase. Also, where I kind of want to end with you, John, is that on the go forward, I think that there's more integrations we can do. I mean, I think that there's more that our companies can do to leverage and pull back together. I'm really excited to continue to work with y'all and make our products better and better and better, because we don't have a lot of overlap. We have a lot of mutual alignment, but we need more Dwayne Purvises. We need people to step up. Get WellDatabase. Let John know if you run into problems. Import it in our system. Let us and John know if there's any issues, right? Like, we have what I call flagship clients. And a lot of times people think, oh, flagship clients, that means like a big bank, right? Or the biggest operator. A lot of those guys just follow along what a Dwayne Purvis came up with 3 years ago, because they're not willing to stick their neck out. Nothing against you big operators, nothing against you banks. I know plenty of y'all are very competent, but y'all have a lot on y'all's shoulders where y'all can't really innovate. Y'all can't really get into these edges where these independent consultants can, where some of these smaller operators can. And so I think there's a real opportunity, if you're out there and you're listening and you saw what John presented and you've seen version 3 and you have ideas for integration, you have ideas to make this better. We both want to hear it, right, John? We both want to hear your ideas, and we might make you a little bit out there, but you know what? Then you'll be the first one to define it, and it'll be your product stack. It'll be your tool, right? And that's what we're trying to work towards, right, John? So
absolutely. No, the more integrations, the tighter, the way I mean, at the end of the day, we said it already, the way we can make our customers' lives better, that's what it's all about. How can we make your job easier so that you can focus on the hard stuff, and not this menial task of finding and wrangling data, fixing issues. Like, get to the real meat. And that's where I think us, WellDatabase and PHDwin together, we're just saving people more and more time and getting a better quality analysis and everything. So I think there's still more room for additional integrations and ways that we can kind of ease that path, again, eliminate those unnecessary hours and let people focus on the things that are really hard. And that's, I think, the best thing we can do to allow people to shine, kind of be their Iron Man suits. So
that's right. I like that. Iron Man suits, right? Be superheroes, and better data in, better results out. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? I mean, and that's what we're shooting for. And so, well, John, we're running a little bit of time, but I really appreciate the presentation today. Thank you so much for being part of PHDwin Week and being a key partner with TRC Consultants, PHDwin. I can't wait to be talking with you again, have future meetings with you. But for now, I'll let you go ahead and have the floor. Tell everyone, how do they find out more about y'all? Where do they go for WellDatabase stuff? One last little plug.
It is so hard. WellDatabase.com. No, everything is there. If you want to hop on, we do month-to-month plans, and then you hit the nail on the head. We get a lot of consultants, project-based work. Totally fine. I don't want to rope people in for a year when they've got a month worth of work to do. I want to make sure they pay what they need and don't pay when they don't. So come to WellDatabase.com. You can chat with us if you have questions. You can get started just by the click of the button. There's no need you have to give us your DNA sample to tell you what a price is going to be. We just want to make that road easy. We want to get people what they need. So come to WellDatabase. And real quick, give a shout out. Like, so many of your speakers this week have been fantastic. The QED folks, the Kimberly Ayers, Dwayne Stewart, they're all people that I've been involved with. They're just fantastic people. You guys really put together a fantastic week, and I'm just really happy that you allowed us to be a part of it. So thank you guys so much for everything that you do.
Well, we really appreciate that. Yeah, Kimberly, Courtney jumped on and said, John, thank you for helping QED learn best data practices. There's a real plug for y'all right there. QED Courtney Stevens, I know y'all love her. She's on every year. She uses WellDatabase. Yeah, that's her data provider of choice. So there you go. You got the check and win. We can't do better than that. So thank you so much for jumping on, John. Thank you, everyone watching the stream today. We really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and sign off for the end of it. So you have a good day, John. And you all have a good day, everyone.